Hello and welcome to the Maniac podcast Unscripted. Today, me and Chris will be talking about our experiences during the live build at the Karrera showroom, wherein Akira Nakai and Angie King themselves are building the RWB on flesh.
Exactly. It was the very first time that we actually experienced them doing it live and not on the screen. With the queen herself, Angie King. Thank you so much, by the way, for interviewing us. And thank you to Castrol, first and foremost, for sponsoring us. And not to mention our longtime hero, the legend of RWB himself, the man that started Japanese culture with Porsche culture, Akira Nakai.
Yes. I've been a huge fan since 2013, especially when Akira Nakai started building, the RWBs here in the Philippines. As we can see here, that's their first ever build.
Exactly.
RWB Victoria. That was in 2013, since even before even before Akira Nakai came here in the Philippines, I'm already watching Angie King's drifting videos
Same.
and all that. And what really surprised me was that they're bringing in wide-bodied Porsches here in this country. Like they're going to modify classic Porsches and make them wide-bodied ones.
Exactly. And let's backtrack to how that started. If you remember back in 97 and how it all started, Akira Nakai was actually an auto detailer. And when he bumped into this 930, he decided, okay, let me make this thing a wide body project. Let me make it outlandish, different, Japanese style, right? And if you remember, he actually named it after his favorite beer. Could you please pronounce it for me? I'm not good at German.
Oh, it's not German. It's, I think, French, if I'm not mistaken. It's Stella Artois.
Yes. And not to mention, RWB actually translates to rough world, which in German is
Rauh-Welt Begriff.
See, man, okay, this is really shocking that he has a German accent. I am really shocked at his talent with German accents.
Well, I'm not really good with German words, but yeah. Those are just few of the words that I can pronounce in German.
Exactly. And thinking about it, it actually translates to his concept of
rough world.
Rough world, yes. And the balance of art and performance in one. And we were able to see that actually in person. I mean, it was impressive that in approximately 3 hours, we arrived there, by the way, at around 11, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, we got the tickets before that.
Around
and then,
10,
we got in by around 11 to 11:30, something like that.
Yes, around that time period.
And we were given the grace period until 12 p.m. to watch and film him and Angie King build an RWB. We filmed them cutting the fenders of a Porsche.
Yeah, modern day. I forgot the year. It was like...
It's a 997.
997 to be exact, yes.
And so, we filmed them for 30 minutes. And then we got out of the Karrera showroom a few hours later. I was shocked, when I saw that the body kits are already installed. Like all of them are already installed.
So yeah, if you recall, right when we were actually starting our vlog, all of a sudden, Andrew was like, "Hey guys!"
I remember that.
Really shocked. Because all of a sudden, I mean, and you even cut in the wrong time.
Oh my goodness.
I remember because we were both jump scared. I was actually in fight or flight mode, guys. I was like, who are you? Oh!
myself was, starstruck. That's why I cut the video.
Yeah. We were too invested in Angie King and Akira doing their work. Because at that time, they were just cutting fenders. We were just filming everything. And all of a sudden,
boom.
Hey, guys. But it was a great story because here's the thing. After that, right off the bat, he introduced us to his friends and family because he told us a fascinating story that after our video blew up during December, right?
Yes.
All of a sudden, this guy from Poland who watched it said, "Who are the guys that put you in the map again?" And then he was like, "Actually, those are the guys right there." Because we just got regular tickets, unfortunately, if you remember our journey there.
Our shirts from, those are the guys from Poland?
No. A guy from Poland actually talked to him and asked him that at first. And that's where it got there. Okay, then all of a sudden he told me, we really helped him a whole lot by sharing his story and putting him on the map. And it's really an honor for us, really, because that's what we love to do. We love, connecting the people with their cars, not just flexing how cool the car is. We really want to make it different by putting their stories out there, their passions, everything. It's all about the enthusiasm over just what you buy in the market.
Like, you can buy a car that is really good, really expensive. You can put all of the, best parts that they can install in a car and all that. But what makes a car, or, what makes it so interesting is not just with all of the modifications, not just with the value of it, but it's with the story, it's with the journey, with that vehicle. It's how it transported you, your families, your friends, or even yourself to where you are right now.
Yeah. And that's exactly what we learned as well from actually meeting other members of the RWB team. Because right after, apart from, he wanted to give us a tour about the updates on Tubera itself, which we were actually impressed because he actually told me that he wanted to make it a hybrid between modern and classic. So if you may, he calls it a resto mod, right?
Yes. And, it's rare for someone to like combine both retro and modern styling, or modern and classics, what do you call this? Modern and classic aesthetic in one car.
Yeah. Shout out to Angie King as well, because she was asking us, Fred, Chris, why are you guys both fond of cars that are actually older than you or as old as you? Remember that run-in joke?
Yes, that was one of the best questions that she asked us,
Yeah, and I remember when she asked us both, she even asked me, myself, is it because you have a bias towards the Tubera and you experience? I'm like, no, it's because we just really appreciate the classic style. We prefer it because we're more of the enthusiasts that really appreciate really having fun with the car rather than having a car that has too much technology.
Like, I would just like to, emphasize that, what I wanted to say a while ago was that, it's rare for someone to tastefully combine, classic and modern.
Exactly.
Yun.
It's very rare because people nowadays are either black or white usually. They're like, okay, I'm going to stick to building an OEM tune, for example. Like with Akira Nakai's past build, it's basically classic Porsches with Japanese. But now they're trying something a whole lot different. I mean, apart from that, shout out as well to the recent Safari build. If you remember the Safari build that we saw. That's a great project by Angie King and Akira himself, because I never expected that to actually work. I just remember the car model, but then this one seems to be a step forward. I really can't wait to how it'll look like.
Yeah, me too. Like, I was really surprised with how the build looked like. Like, it's not your typical RWB.
No, it's not,
Where that particular RWB had thicker tires than the usual.
It looked almost like monster truck build, but then in its normal scale. And shout out to Carbon Racing for this. Honestly, I was really shocked with how it came out, because even if it's not yet done, you can clearly see that that car was built to last through the terrains and to be a huge competition towards the likes of even the pickups, like the famous Toyota Hilux, the Strada, and all that. I think it would give them a run for their money. But the biggest question in my head is, would it be an all-wheel drive, or will they just maintain the rear wheel?
That I'm not really sure. But one thing's for sure is that, it can easily compete with the newer 992 Dakar, and the other one, the Lamborghini Huracan Sterato.
Yeah, and not to mention, it's actually still a modern Porsche. It's actually the same model as the one that was being, modified and RWB'd by Akira and Angie in the showroom, actually. Except, it was painted matte gold, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes.
It had the golden, safari wheels, so to speak.
Yep. Let's just wait for the final results. Me myself is excited. Me and Chris are excited with the build.
And I'm going to do Angie King a solid as well. Thank you for mentioning our YouTube channel. I'm going to say, please stay tuned to Carporn Racing and RWB for this project. We really can't wait for it. And going back to the story with, showing us Tubera 2.0, we actually met other RWB members, by the way, right? If you recall, Sam from UK.
Sam's Detailing UK, By
Please
the way,
check it out. It's
that's
on
the
IG.
Instagram. Yes.
Mm-mm. Sam and Tubero's Andrew's cousin from
Mm-mm.
Toronto.
I forgot the name though. Too bad I wasn't able to ask
Same, we
him.
weren't able to ask because we were actually too caught up in appreciating their RWB builds because they were actually like telling us, "Hey guys, can you please feature or mention our RWB builds?" So here we are now. We're gonna tell you, please check them out. They are really, really distinct and very, very unique. If you remember how they look like,
Grabe.
they were really like the definition of like when I really learned about I can't spoil it now, but when I learned about the story of their RWBs and compared it with what we learned so far from Tubero, I learned that each really have their own distinct personality and their own distinct art into them. It's not just about art and performance, but it's all about giving them their own identity.
Their own personality, kumbaga. Like, that di rin nakapagtataka kung bakit they all have different names.
Exactly.
They all have different builds. Hindi sila magkakaparehas ng build and all that.
For example, we got Yutaka, right? The one that's just about as red and as fierce as my jacket. We also have Kirsten, who has a cross for the team.
Yes. And there's also Teresa, Ayanami. What's that yellow Porsche? Again, that yellow RWB.
And I wasn't able to catch the name of that one.
But I'll find it out.
We're gonna find it out right after. And then we have Tubero, which is completely Filipino.
Of course.
Right? So as you can see, it's not just different names, but also different, nationalities. Like we have the Filipino Tubero, we have like they have their whole identity and their own specs. Kumbaga. It's not just a plain simple, okay, I'll just name it this, I'll just name it that. No, there's really a passion that goes through it that Akira brings in. Especially when he just handmade, if you remember, he really handmade all the modifications, all the bodily modifications himself, together with Angie.
And I forgot to mention to her that, this is actually one of my all-time favorite, the RWB Victoria.
Likewise.
Because that is where it all started. Like, this is where RWB Philippines started in the first place with Victoria. I was really invested to it when I was younger, when I was still in high school. I can also recall at some point I even made a sketch or drawing of it. That was in 2013, but for some reason I threw it away because
why?
Well, I wasn't really comfortable with my own skills yet. Like I wanted
great, honestly. I mean, it's a really fitting tribute to Angie King's very own Victoria.
Yeah, too bad. Like I wasn't really confident with my drawing skills yet during that time.
I mean, would you also still remember the inspiring story of how Victoria's the very original project, so to speak?
Yes. At its first phase, man.
Yeah, the very first phase itself. And not to mention, actually, it makes me miss the retro builds that, RWB and Akira and Angie used to build. Not to say that, it just gives a really big shift. Like right now, as you can see, they're really trying to balance out the performance specs with the artistic specs.
Right.
Again, saying that. But back then, it was like they were really trying to figure that out. But I'm happy that right now they're able to really materialize it. Like, for example, you do recall Angie's latest Ferrari, right?
Yes, which one is it?
The black one.
Wait, what is that Ferrari again?
That's right. 530.
458. Oh wait, it's not the 458. It's the black one. But I believe she sold it already, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, and not to mention, if you remember the shell with the classic Mustang, but then she put in a new chassis, if I'm not mistaken, of an updated Mustang.
Oh yes, man, it was
That's
so
my favorite
subtle.
by far.
It was so subtle. The way Angie married the chassis of the newer Ford Mustang with the classic body of the Ford Mustang, man.
I believe it was a 68, right? 68
Something like
model.
that. Or, yeah. It's in 1968.
Yeah, 968 and a new shell, an updated shell of the Mustang,
Mm.
which again proves the meme wrong that Mustangs are just stiff monsters
Mm.
around the road. This gives a whole new
Mm.
perspective, especially seeing her drive.
But correct me if I'm wrong though. Because I'm not sure if it's the 68 Mustang or the Mustang Boss, whichever it is. But
I
man,
believe it's the Boss, but yes, please do mention in the comment section
mm,
as to what exactly it was.
Mm.
I do believe it was the Boss, and it's a black Boss at the same time. It really gave me the sinister feel.
mm,
Right? Did you ever give it a name, by the way? Not sure.
I think so.
Hmm. But yeah, going back to RWB, it was quite the experience, especially when we, fast forward to what he was saying, when we came back in about 3 hours, it was basically
Yes.
almost done. We already saw the wide body. It was like, it's wider than we expected, right?
Mm-mm.
And then he was like, yeah, they already put the wide body in.
Ang bilis. Like, ang bilis ng progress.
Ang bilis. I was honestly expecting it to take hours because, if you go to any detailing shop or tuning shop, it usually takes a lot of time to really make adjustments and all that. But
Mm.
them, it really shows that they are true artists of their
Mm.
craft and really practical at that. I mean, I'd love to have my car done in a couple of hours, but it wasn't exactly done. It was more of like they were also putting a thorough aspect of really observing and measuring each and
Mm.
every part.
Exactly. Like, man, if I'm not mistaken, again, like, Akira Nakai, cuts defenders,
Mm.
almost without measurement.
Yeah, he just hand measures them basically, and they just film it on the spot. There's no cuts, by the way. Our experience was they just literally do it on the spot.
Mm.
And then, okay, the most Akira moment is when he needs a break. I don't really time on how long it takes, but in about an hour or so, whenever he takes a break, for him to conceptualize what else to add, he would always take a cigar and smoke together with.
It's a cigarette.
It lets him reflect, okay, how else do I polish this piece of art right there?
That is his most iconic, that is the most iconic
Yeah,
thing
sure.
about, Akira Nakai. He always has a cigarette on his hand,
We were so starstruck seeing it in person. And you took a perfect shot of it. I took a
Yes.
video of it. I was absolutely starstruck. I was like, Fred, he's doing the thing. He's doing the thing.
Mm.
Yeah, he's doing the thing. His iconic smoke. I mean, it actually helps him focus. And, it's a great touch, trademark touch, wherein he would actually do it to, invite more ideas and thoughts. And when he actually executes them, I mean,
Boom.
they were basically having a beer while working on it. It was like, are these guys like, whoa, I was really shocked, like in a good way. I was like, wow, they're actually celebrating, they're feasting, and then all of a sudden they're doing a great job incorporating their fresh ideas towards this new RWB project. It was quite the spectacle seeing it in person because we were able to see for ourselves that, okay, that's the end goal. That's where we want to go.
Mm.
Especially when we really get that good in, customizing cars, making ourselves, and it's actually a dream of ours to be part of that area one day. Like, I really wish I could have a beer together with the RWB team.
I wish
The
so.
VIP area. But don't worry, we are working on that.
One day, man.
One day manifesting. As a matter of fact, we should each get ourselves RWBs. Hopefully,
That will
993
happen
is
someday.
my 993 or the Targa. That's my goal. How about you? What's your goal, if ever, for RWB?
I want mine to be a 964 Targa.
Same.
Just like, the other RWB that is
The gray one?
displayed. Yes.
Yes, that's my favorite. The gray one was absolutely my favorite.
But personally, I wanted to have those retro looking wheels,
Likewise, period correct for me.
But the wider version, like I've seen those not really exact same wheels, but similar looking wheels on the Porsche Singer that I've seen for myself last week or last few weeks ago.
You mean the ones that are like 255 and above, right? That wide.
Yes, something like that.
That wide.
And man, I was really starstruck when I saw it personally. The Porsche Singer out in the wild.
I wish I was there with you because the moment I saw it, I was like, "Yo, that's a singer! It's an
Yes.
iconic singer." As we call it, the Black Widow, right?
Mm-mm.
The Widow Porsche.
It's the Widowmaker.
Yes, because it's dangerous to drive. But honestly, in all respect to Porsche and the Widowmaker itself, I think it's really meant to be like that. That's
It
really what
is,
gives
it
it the
is.
identity and the fun factor of it.
Mm-mm.
But of course, I am thankful for the modern Porsches for being safer, so to speak.
Mm-mm.
Mm.
But yeah, the enjoyment of it, hindi mo talaga mapapantayin yung yung raw driving experience ng isang traditional. Yes.
The classic Porsches.
Well, that's not to say that, the newer ones are terrible. Well, actually, yun nga yung best part sa mga sa mga bagong Porsche ngayon. Like, their transmissions have improved, from the typical Tiptronic, they have transitioned to PDKs.
Lots are just hand shifted, yeah.
And I'm glad that, they are one of the few automotive manufacturers that are still putting in manual transmissions on, high performance models.
Thank God for that. Because as a
Mm-mm.
manual driver myself, I really disagree personally with the fact that automatic should be too dominant, because I believe it should be a balance of both. Like, if you really want to enjoy the car, go for manual. If you want practicality, go for an automatic.
Exactly. I mean, if you want the traditional driving feel, the raw performance, go drive a manual, go get a manual if you want like a really, really engaging drive. Or if you want something that is comfortable but still doesn't compromise its performance, get a PDK or a dual clutch.
Dual clutch.
Yes, dual clutch it is, because newer transmissions on supercars and sports cars, they actually shift crisply. They have a crisp shifting, rather.
It's quite like a manual. Like, you wouldn't know the difference, except that you're not the one mismo who's shifting gears and
Exactly.
adjusting it. But nonetheless, it's at peak performance. Like, when I tried the WRX, I was shocked. I was like, wow, it actually shifts quite like how I'm shifting a manual in every rev. That's the reason why, yes. Also, be very, very, I would say, nitpicky with the automatics that you choose, because there are really automatics out there wherein they have a delayed response.
Exactly.
So,
especially mga luma.
yes, based on personal experience, it's really a hassle, especially in traffic, when you have to slightly, even if you don't mean to over-rev it. I tended to over-rev it because of the fact that it just needed a push. I really hate that experience, personally.
Yeah, that happened to me a lot as well, even with an automatic. Like,
even modern ones.
yes,
still have it.
in an incline, it would still go reverse whenever,
At times, it happens to me too.
whenever I'm in the traffic.
Especially pag nakahangin ka and then you're like parallel, like the car's just a centimeter, like, what?
But
Like,
now
no.
it's much easier to control as compared to like driving a manual, right?
Oh yes, in manual you really have to. It's not just all about sabi nga, they always say don't make baba the clutch. There's a reason for that, because you're wearing it down and you're wearing out the transmission as a whole. So it's really best. Timing's everything with manual, except of course I do have to admit, as much as I am a hardcore manual driver, I like balancing both, because especially here in the Philippines, it's best to have the best of both worlds. If it's really traffic, go for automatic, please, rather than having to spend thousands in maintenance.
Grabe.
But if you want to enjoy the car, go manual for its full potential.
Like, I can attest to that, since I've driven our Toyota Corolla for a couple of years when I'm still able to drive it in college. Almost every day I would go on a bottleneck in where's that?
Magallanes.
Yes, Magallanes. That's in what's that? Villamor Golf Course.
Yes, William Moore.
May rotonda dun eh. Where
Exactly.
yun. It's always traffic in that area, as far as I can remember, even up until now, probably. It's one of the most challenging traffic jams that I've encountered, being a driver.
Exactly. Likewise, going to Green Hills or going to QC. Well, almost everywhere here. Expect bottlenecks everywhere, Which is why it's actually shocking to me, going back to the RWB topic, that they make a lot of those around here because considering the resiliency of the traffic here and driving something like that, it takes a lot of responsibility.
Exactly.
Even if the Barrow is an automatic transmission, if you recall.
Oh yes. Or rather a Tiptronic.
Tiptronic, yes. Classic Tiptronic is what the Barrow has.
Mm-mm.
I was actually shocked that, it's actually it takes a lot of skill because I recall in our past video when I was talking to Drew himself during our drive that he was saying, I've been through a couple of accidents here and there and it's really hassle to drive in traffic, but he makes it his daily at times. Which is why I really admire talaga and I really want to be part of the RWB community at some point myself and to own one. That's my goal.
That's our end goal, probably.
Except there's always this challenge, no? Na it's easy to buy a car, like you said. This is Fred's quote. It's easy to buy a car, but maintaining that's a whole different story. So we're gonna have to really build up our money for that responsibly.
It will happen someday. Like, it's as I said again. I'll reiterate again. It's easy to build and buy a car, but the maintenance itself you have to be prepared for it.
Mm-hmm.
Always, because maintaining a car is like bearing a child. It is as expensive as having your own family.
Basically, yeah. That's the reason why there's the running joke wherein would you pick a family or would you pick building your project car? That's the reason why I plan to actually get the Targa in particular because I hear it's one of the most reliable Porsches. I mean, there was this one guy, I remember reading a brochure or a magazine before wherein he said, I use this going camping and it's just an all-stock Targa. And I was like, man, I also want the RWB this thing. And I want Akira to give it a name, respectfully.
But yeah, going back to that, or rather the Safari build, and I'm excited.
Same. I can't wait on how to turn up. I'm willing to bet that shell it has now, that's not the final shell by any stretch. I think they're gonna give it a full wide body RWB kit that looks. I think it's gonna look different because if you can imagine it being in the terrain, it needs something that's very open and very, something that's not too susceptible to bumps or fragile to bumps. At the same time, I'm really thinking between are they gonna make it a rallycross build or purely rally build?
That I'm not sure, but let's see.
Let's see. And I'm willing to bet though that it's still gonna stay true to its motor. Like it's still gonna use that boxer engine, right?
Well, I think so. Or unless they have other plans.
Let's see, because one thing you ought to know about Carporn Racing and Angie King in general is that they love trying new things. They love trying something that you won't imagine could ever work.
They're very diverse with, the builds in their cars. Sobrang diverse sila. And, sobrang unique in a way na, as you said kanina, outlandish.
I mean, my family themselves, they call it cannibalizing, but for me, I call it trying out a whole new taste, a whole new perspective. Similar to what we discussed before, East Meets West. It's something like that, but to a whole new level. Because, even looking at her pink Carrera, if you recall, her pink RWB.
It's called Ava, by the way.
Ava, yes. Remembering Ava, you would never, ever see a stock Carrera in pink and in a wide body with the specs that it has, but when you look into it, you're like, hey, this actually works. Right? It actually works. And it looks like a race car, but then you see it on the streets.
That's the one that we saw during the event, right?
Which we took a lot of shots of because I was madly in love with it the moment I saw it. I was like, dang, this looks like a track car, but at the same time, it works really well as a street car.
Stunning color, stunning car. It is stunning build overall.
Yes. It had the parts that you never thought would work because if we were playing a racing game right now, like likewise GD7 or something, we wouldn't even think of putting those parts in. We would just make it OEM tune or just true to its identity in the Porsche. But then what she did was basically put parts that we didn't expect could actually fit in. No?
I even saw a surfboard. Is that a surfboard or
surfboard holder? And I'm sticking on top.
Oh.
Because I do recall, I think, seeing some videos of her putting, those on top. I didn't expect that because usually you would just think it's a track build upon first class, but you're like, whoa, there's also the holders on top. There's the extra parts that make it the street car.
Which proves that, a sports car or any Porsche 911 can also be, useful, practical, right? Like it's not just any sports car that you can just drive on track.
Yes.
You can also take it somewhere, make it your lifestyle vehicle.
Exactly. That's the reason why I was saying it's not just a widowmaker to be feared. It's actually a car to have fun with. It's a car that you should enjoy. But of course, going back to owning it, ang iniisip ko lang is like, okay, maybe the only chance we have to get is practicality. Like, can we afford the parts? So it's a car that really teaches overall responsibility. All of the 911s to be exact.
Any sports car in general, it does. Like any really high maintenance cars in general, you know.
I mean, nonetheless, even if it's a very practical sports car, it's still a sports car. You have to respect it as that.
Yes, like any cars, naman in general, it deserves. They all deserve each, and they all deserve respect.
Yeah, and by the way, that's actually exactly what I think car porn racing and RWB are doing really well. Because they're actually giving these cars not just their own identities, but giving them justice with every single mod that they put in. Right? Like they make sure that they're each distinct and different from one another. Like if you look at them, yeah, sure, they have the same wide bodies, but then there's always something different. There's always a hint of something else.
Like cliche as it may sound, though, each and every parts of those cars, well, it adds character.
That's character. And if you recall, right, Tubero is not a heavily tuned car inside. Like the engine is not it's basically stock, but with a wide body shell. Except Tubero is basically one of the only RWBs. It doesn't make it a high performance. Like there are some RWBs out there, or many at that. There are many RWBs out there that are actually high in performance, like Anayama, right? Ayanami is really, really high in performance in comparison to Tubero, and yet they fit in the same mold.
Right.
And that's a clear-cut example of how Nakaya is all about variety. He's not just all about, okay, I'm just going to build a car for the sake of it. He's all about the passion, really. And it was also great based on our experience meeting the community there because people of the same mode are actually there because, the people that we talk to, likewise, Luco Works, shout out to Luco Works, Brother Drew and the other RWB team. So yeah, one of the greatest things that I learned actually from my visit there was really the most through Luco Works because he really inspired me that you don't have to be unnatural on camera. You don't have to be someone who you're not. Because when we met him in person, we were really shocked that he instantaneously, like even if it's the very first time that, I don't know if was it your first time meeting him?
Yes, it was my first time. And, me and Luca, we've been talking quite some time, and sharing each other's passion with cars. I've witnessed his project car, which is the BMW E30. Yeah, which is also my dream car, by the way.
I mean, for me, it was the very first time I've ever spoken with him. So I was really shocked at how inspiring he is in the sense that he literally talked to us very naturally and without filter, without hesitation. He just instantaneously talked about his E30, asked us what we were here for and what our passions were.
And how he sounds like on cam. That's how he sounds in person. Yes. And his E30 project was sort of like an eye-opener for me as, a future BMW E30, hopefully I'd be able to get one myself. But
likewise. It's also my dream number one BMW to get after driving an actual one.
Yeah, but it's an eye-opener for me since, maintaining an 80s BMW it's not
I mean,
it's no joke.
To quote my, my uncle, Tito Hector de Luria, and his son, Miguel de Luria, shout out by the way, they told me that they usually drive the car just, roughly maybe thrice a month.
Wow.
Because of how much they have to maintain it. They really had, I couldn't say the figures because of course it's big figures, but they really have to spend several figures on it, even if they barely
Grabe.
drive the car. It really takes a lot of responsibility. And of course, the weakness for us Filipinos is that, syempre, with cars that are expensive, we automatically think that, okay, I think it's best to drive it much less. But actually, cars like that, if you really do your research, ladies and gentlemen, you'd really have to drive it often, and they're really meant to be driven to last longer. Actually,
Yeah, it's just like our human body. It needs to function, or else it will
Break down.
deteriorate.
I mean, likewise, based on my own experience before we sold the Impreza, it was breaking down on its own, even if it was basically a Sunday car or a car that wasn't really used. You know, it just broke down. The aircon broke down. We had to pay for it eventually, even for the engine and the other
Yeah.
parts. It was
That was
wasn't good.
unfortunate.
Mhm.
And to say the least about our Corolla, since we haven't been driving that for quite some time, it started to deteriorate, and it rather than just keeping it in the garage, we might as well give it to a deserving owner, and one of the deserving owners would be Kuya Wilson, which were in they previously owned that Corolla.
Exactly.
It's their it's sort of like their heirloom car in a way. It's the oldest surviving car in our family.
And that is why it brings me to our second lesson, which is really loving the car and taking care of them.
Mm-mm.
And that is because, no matter how much you'd want to keep a car, no matter how much you would, want to keep it you can't keep it as a museum piece. It just comes to
Yes.
show. To quote Sir James Deacon, and, other, like even Sir Tom told us
Mm-mm.
that you can't just keep it in storage for long, because if you let it, it's going to depreciate eventually.
Yes.
It's all about how much passion on how you use it and how you utilize it, because nonetheless, it's still an object, still a material thing that we're meant to love as fellow car enthusiasts that really love cars.
And really, I'm starting to reject the idea of keeping your mileage low on your cars, because
No, yeah,
the lower your car's mileage is, the less that it is being used, and its components are not being what do you call this?
They're not
They're not moving. Yes, they're not functioning, and then eventually they will, as I said, they will deteriorate sooner or later.
yeah. I mean, okay. Upon base knowledge, you may think maybe not using it would mean making it last longer, but that's not the case.
Yeah.
Since they're composed of materials that actually deteriorate over time, especially if you don't use it. So the true answer there, our advice to you is, it should be in a balance.
Yes,
Don't
yes,
use
yes.
it too
Tama.
often, but also don't not use it too often.
Good idea. In other words, maintain, replenish, keep it running reliably. That's the point of it. It's not. It's not like you. It's not like you have to abuse it or something like that.
You don't need to.
In an extent where you need to, push it to its limit and all that. Like,
Exactly.
you just have to do the same routine. Maintain it religiously for as long as you can.
Exactly. I mean, likewise, just like what Nakai and Angie King are doing with their projects, they basically aim to, not just maintain, but to really enjoy the cars. Because that's the thing. As you can see, right? They're beautiful with wide bodies, Japanese tuning, and they're how they are as in their own identities. But then at the same time, they actually give time to, at times, if they have to, race the cars, abuse them, but not overly abuse. They are perfect examples of leaving that balance, so to speak. And to quote our the driver that we miss so much, Kuya Bambi, he always says, to honor him, I want to say this. Like he always says, as long as you take care of the car well, giving it everything it needs, driving it the way you should, you're good to go. That's how you appreciate the car at its fullest as a car enthusiast.
Absolutely. So yeah, to wrap this up, thank you very much for allowing us, or rather giving us the opportunity to, be interviewed. By the way, Miss Angie King, thank you very much. Maraming salamat. We're hoping to see, the interview soon.
Yes, and we hope to have more time and to hopefully work with you in the future. We're really up for that, and it's a dream. It's really also an honor to Sir Nakai for really welcoming us, supporting us, because we always see that, his account oftentimes likes our video, especially if it's RWB related, which we really appreciate, by the way. Likewise, we're always tuning in because you're always going to be our hero. Like, even after your job is done with the Porsches, you will always be forever our hero in the world of tuning and art.
Yes, we will always remember you. Even if you have, retired, hopefully not sooner, but yeah.
Yeah, honestly, we were also told that this might be one of your last builds, but we're hoping that it won't be.
Yeah, hopefully so.
Hopefully.
So yeah, that's a wrap. Maraming salamat. Thank you very much for tuning in.
Thank you, everybody.